Hi, my name is Jordy Izzard, and I'm Senior Associate Director of SAIS Alumni Relations, and I'm here today, have the pleasure of being with Robert Nussbaumer, who graduated from SAIS in 1966. He was here on the Washington, D.C. campus for 2 years. He's here today celebrating his 50th anniversary from graduating from SAIS for the Legacy Circle Luncheon. So it's my pleasure to have you. It's April 13th, 2016, and we're just going to have a bit of a conversation. And why don't we start with what originally brought you to SAIS?
Well, okay, fine, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, I might add. I'm looking forward to seeing some people that I haven't seen in a number of years. Yeah, I graduated from Southern Methodist University in 1963, and I wanted to experience travel. So I went over to Europe after I graduated, and had an uncle who was the chief warrant officer at the 7th Army in Stuttgart. And he had married one of my dad's sisters, and they were married over there. And so I went over there in Stuttgart and ended up traveling around Europe for a number of months, and then ended up actually working in a Daimler-Benz car factory in Germany for a while. And then came back to the United States and decided that I had an economics degree from Southern Methodist University, a BA, Bachelor of Arts, and I wanted more political science. And so I went to Washington University School in St. Louis to the political science department. And I sat down, remember, and went through the brochures, and out popped the School of Advanced International Studies. And I thought, well, that'd be pretty exciting, going to Washington, D.C., 2-year program. And I was interested in going into the Foreign Service. And so that's how it came about. I applied and was accepted and came here in the fall of 1964.
Terrific. And when you arrived at SAIS in 1964, tell us a little bit about what your memories were of being a student in those 2 years.
Well, of course, we had just this is the building I'm in now. No, not the building I'm in now, the one across the street. That was the only building we had. And we had the classrooms, a very small number of people in each classroom. Mm-hmm. I do remember that. And it was relatively almost like seminars, informally. And we had some people from who had been in the State Department that taught us, and we had some that were in private business too that came in, and took various courses. You know, I was interested in the European studies, so I took European diplomacy, I guess, and economics and things like that. And so I just remember rather an informal, small classroom studies. Mm-hmm. And a very comfortable atmosphere, you know, and a studious atmosphere.
That's terrific. And do you remember any professors that you took classes with?
Well, I had, I should have gone through some of my notes.
No, don't
No, that's worry. All right. One was E.A.J. Johnston, I think. Mm-hmm. And then we had Sulam. Mm-hmm. And Wilcox taught, I think, the United Nations area. And I guess he was the dean at the time, I think, Dean Wilcox. And I'm trying to think, we had the fellow taught political science out of I can't remember his name. It was kind of a heavy-set fellow. We taught out of the book, I think, Hans Morgenthal's Politics Among Nations, or something like that.
That's terrific.
Yeah, and he would smoke a pipe, the professor.
Oh, that's excellent.
But I can't. That's why I say somebody should have handed me some of the professors that I remember. Now you have to understand that's 50 years ago.
Yeah,
and that's a long time to remember all of them. And I had a German teacher for 2 years. We sat in the German class,
And was that your language?
Yeah, that was my language for 2 years.
Okay, great. And then what were some of the things historically that were happening in 64 to 66?
Well, the big thing, of course, was Vietnam was starting to heat up. And I can remember very distinctly in the first part of 1965, there was an incident in the Gulf of Tonkin. I don't know if you remember that, of course, but in the Gulf of Tonkin, and there was an attack by some gunboats, I think, by the North Vietnamese, and McNamara was the Secretary of Defense, and Johnson was of course, was the president at the time, and that initiated the sending of troops in Vietnam. So that became a very hot issue. Even it grew. By the time I was out of here, it was still it became really a concern among all the Americans. And I remember going back to Europe in '66, and I was in Hungary, and they actually had streets were marked where they had an anti-American rally. You know, the imperialism of the United States going over to Vietnam. And that was in '66. So that was the big, the big issue at that time. Matter of fact, we had a fellow, Bernard Fall, came in and lectured downstairs in '65 or so, I think, maybe '66. And he was as a young man, he was in the French Resistance in World War II. And he spoke 3 languages, French, I think French, German, and maybe even Chinese, anyway, in English. And he gave a speech about how the communists were going into the villages, the North Vietnamese and the South, and they would execute the leaders in each village, and that's how they eventually became, dominant in South Vietnam. But anyway, yeah, that was the main issue at that time.
And then tell us a little bit about once you graduated in '66, and it sounds like you went to Europe for a little while. Tell us about your career trajectory, how it started and how it evolved.
Well, after I got the master's degree, I had an issue as to whether or not I wanted to go in the Foreign Service, and I made a decision that I didn't think I was of that character. Let's put it that way, or that aptitude, maybe. So I decided that I wasn't too interested in doing any foreign service work at that time. So, and I had had a number of friends from high school too that we maintained, had gone to law school. And so I asked my congressman and a couple other people, was there any harm in getting a law degree and on top of a master's degree, and then still hold out, maybe going to the Foreign Service. And they thought that would be a good compliment. So I ended up going to law school for 3 years, University of Missouri, and got a doctorate of jurisprudence.
Okay, great. And then what happened after that?
Well, and after that, then I was back in Missouri at that time, and I had some parents that were becoming elderly too, and then shortly thereafter, I met a girl and got married, and so one thing led to another, and I went with a law firm, and I had no law background. My dad was a businessman, and I thought, well, I'll try to get a background of what I wanted to do in the law. I was still interested in international law too, really, and I had taken, as a matter of fact, I took an international law course at the University of Missouri. So I was interested in international law at that time too. But the law firm I went with primarily did insurance defense work, and that's kind of where I ended up. And I enjoyed the work. I still do. I'm still working full time. Wow. In other words, you take depositions, you do oral arguments, you write appellate briefs, you try lawsuits, and you can study and as I say, write briefs. And it's very, very, to me, it's very interesting. And now I can go to Illinois and Missouri. As a matter of fact, I came up here in 1978, I guess it was, and with a group of lawyers from St. Louis, and we have a picture on the steps of the Supreme Court here, and I was admitted to the Supreme Court. And last June, I was up here, I went back to the Supreme Court, and sure enough, they still had my register.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So that's pretty cool. I didn't try any cases in front of the Supreme Court, but I am authorized to do so.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, so I ended up a member of the federal bar and the Missouri bar and the Illinois State Bar.
Terrific.
Yes.
And now you're still working full-time?
Still working full-time. The business still comes in. My energy level is still good. So.
And does it take you traveling to different places?
No, not much. Only around Missouri and in Illinois, across the Mississippi River.
Well, we're lucky to have you here today.
Well, thank you.
Flew out
from there.
Yeah,
flew from St. Louis yesterday.
That's terrific.
Yeah, well, I enjoy traveling still.
And
I've been to Europe a number of times since graduation from SAIS. I guess I've been to Europe a dozen times. Flew around the world one time too. Matter of interest.
Terrific.
Had an around the world TWA ticket.
Oh wow, terrific.
While I was working.
And now, in thinking after your, as you're still working, but your career of 50 years, having graduated from SAIS, in thinking about current students today, what advice might you have for a current student?
Well, the character, I guess, of a person hasn't changed, of course, and as I indicated, I persevered in getting them and going to graduate school, and persevered in getting the degree itself. So I would say to that student, you know, just hang in there, you know, and things may not go easy for you, whether it be a family problem or a financial problem, you know, or an educational problem. But if you have a goal and you have a passion about it, I would just recommend that they just stick with it and persevere. I went through the school here now, and it's just completely a different atmosphere in the sense of the computers. We had no computers, right. You know, and every person has a computer. We didn't. We hardly knew they were existing. So you know, to me that's different. So I can't relate to that student with the computer system. I guess it's the same.
Definitely changed things.
But it has changed, yeah. For so sure. I guess that's what I would say. From an educational standpoint, I can't give them any advice as to how to study with the computers or anything like that. If there is a problem, I don't know if kids do they have problems coming in, or they all step right in with the computer system? I guess they probably do.
Yeah, most people are pretty familiar with it.
Yeah, pretty familiar with it by now, see, but we didn't have that.
That's all right. Well, I really appreciate your time today, and we're just so glad to have you, and hope you have a wonderful time at the event. And thanks so much for all you've done to help SAIS in the world.
Well, sure, fine, thank you.